I'm not worthy. Neither was I.
What is that?
The season finale of The Boys premieres this week, and to say the least, there's been a lot of controversy following this final season. I, however, wanted to talk about another topic related to The Boys, and many shows like it that I don't think should be very controversial, but who knows? That being the adult content and anti-Christian messaging that's becoming more prominent in media in general, but specifically in superhero media. A decade ago, a show like The Boys would not have nearly captured as large an audience as it currently has, because quite honestly, a lot of the content in that show is pretty hard to watch and is really only there for the shock factor. The Boys takes it way too far, in my opinion, in many aspects, and really no one you would expect to be coming out against it really wants to talk about it, because the supporters for The Boys aren't exactly a small group. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about as well, because the reason The Boys became so popular in modern culture is pretty fascinating. So over the last 100 years or so, blockbusters have pretty much followed the same method to gain popularity, that being the 4-quadrant hit method. The 4-quadrant hit method is a method films used to see who their films will be popular with, and they mainly want to target the male demographic, the female demographic, those under the age of 25, and those over the age of 25. And pretty much every single film tries to do this, until recently. So for example, movies from different genres like Disney movies or rom-coms were targeted more to the female audience, did still follow the 4-quadrant hit method because they tried to appeal to more than just the female audience. Same thing with action, spy, and superhero movies. They all appealed to all demographics, but were targeted towards the male audience. Of course, women have always watched action movies, and men have always watched rom-coms and Disney movies, but the primary audience was gender specific. Superhero movies almost exclusively followed the 4-quadrant hit method up until about 7 years ago. That's because 7 years ago is right about when the predominantly female genres of movies started losing money at the box office for the first time in a while. Because of this, companies like Disney started targeting their male-dominated genres, specifically Marvel and Star Wars, to female audiences. And they mainly did this because of criticism over the failure of the Bechdel test. In order for a film to pass the Bechdel test, the film must have 2 named women that talk to each other about something other than a man. Marvel, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and even movies like Cars all failed the Bechdel test, and Disney was trying to rectify that fact with their recent movies, typically by bringing in a new, younger female character. However, for one reason or another, but mainly because of poor writing, this caused the male and female dominant genres from Disney to lose popularity with their audiences. This is where shows like The Boys come in. Shows like The Boys and Invincible came out right at that cusp where superhero movies weren't as popular at the box office, but the audience was still there for those movies. Shows like Invincible and The Boys would not have nearly gained as much popularity if not for the scarcity of popular male superhero content. The Boys was able to capture the male audience and was able to keep that audience due to something that no other superhero media had dared to do before, to keep increasing the shock factor with each episode. If you want extreme gore, language, and sexual content, you go to Prime Video nowadays. And yeah, this is something that the male audience tends to prefer over the female audience. The Boys chose not to follow the 4-quadrant hit method and was able to draw in an incredibly large amount of the male audience. I personally think this is a really bad thing in general. If this is where our society is in general, that we can't understand that some things probably shouldn't be in a TV show, then I don't know what to say, because every show will just have to have more and more shocking things. And it's really bad for the superhero genre in general, because the studios will realize, why would you invest millions of dollars into a clean, family-friendly movie that might probably bomb when a cheap, hyper-violent streaming show can guarantee a massive dedicated male audience. I really do think The Boys is the reason that so much superhero content has become much more R-rated. After The Boys came out, DC, and to a lesser extent Marvel, started putting out more content that was targeted primarily to the male audience. I mean, Peacemaker was completely inappropriate to associate with the brand of DC, because the brand of DC is a family brand. This is the kind of thing I don't understand with the bigger brands like DC and Marvel, because when you put out a show like The Boys, it really won't affect the audience because the audience is only there for The Boys. But when you put out a show like Peacemaker inside the DC universe, which should be targeting audiences using the 4-quadrant hit method, meaning you are appealing to both women and children in addition to men, you cannot associate that type of content with the brand. Even in the Superman movie from last year, Peacemaker should not have cameoed in that movie. You cannot associate your brand with that show. Also, in Superman, there was this one scene that I was really shocked by, where Superman and Lois are making out for a very long time on screen, and I was just in utter shock they put that in a Superman movie of all things. Marvel has mostly stayed away from adult content, with the exception of the Defenders universe. Obviously, I don't have a huge problem with the Defenders universe because it is meant to be a darker and grittier take on Marvel superheroes. I haven't seen Born Again yet, but for the marketing of Daredevil Born Again Season 1, the trailer very prominently featured a sex scene with Matt Murdock, which also really shocked me because Marvel really doesn't do sex scenes in their movies. Not to mention that Matt Murdock is a Catholic in the show. And of all the shows you had to put that kind of stuff into, you put it into the show where the superhero is a Christian. Once again, this is a trend started by The Boys, tearing down the Christian character and have them do very un-Christian things. Pretty much every Christian character in The Boys is a bad person. Firecracker and O-Father are portrayed as being Christian, but they don't hold any of the values a Christian should, or would. Starlight was the only protagonist who was a Christian, and she lost her faith in the show because Christians in the show are primarily Homelander supporters. And of course, you can't forget Supersonic, probably the only real Christian in the entire show, who was killed off within 2 episodes of his first appearance. Invincible Season 4 also had an entire episode dedicated to a hell subplot, where Invincible essentially helps Satan take over hell. Oh, and here's what the demons have to say about God.
Hey, if there's a hell, does that mean there's a heaven too?
No heaven we know of. No one keeping track of good deeds. Make
Are we
Earth
joking right
heaven
now?
instead of imaginary one in sky.
Aren't demons the bad guys? No offense. And I can't work for the devil.
Satan, not evil.
I forged this molten crown and imbued it with the souls of the vanquished. With their power coursing through my vessel, I ruled over an era of peace the Underrealm had never seen.
So, yeah, if you're a Christian and also a fan of these shows, you might start to feel more targeted with some of these additions. There really wasn't a need to add that subplot to the show, as it didn't even happen in the comics. Same thing with the gore and language in Invincible. They were added to the show for the shock factor. This is the last thing about Christianity, but in Deadpool and Wolverine, Deadpool literally says,
I am Messiah. I am Marvel Jesus.
Not only is this a crude thing to say, but I'm kind of shocked that more Christians are not outraged by this being in a Marvel movie as much as I am. And I'm also really surprised that Disney would put that in their trailer, and it worked out. But I'm surprised that they thought that would be a good idea to put in a trailer to market to a population of 30% Christians. Because yeah, Christians are 30% of the US population. So I don't understand how that population is not more outspoken about the clear anti-Christian messaging in the shows that they're watching. Like, I mean, Christians do watch The Boys. Christians watch Invincible. Christians watch Deadpool and Wolverine. The problem is that they are no longer bothered by the content shown in these shows because every show has this kind of content. And also, when you watch a show like The Boys, and then you watch Invincible, and then you watch Deadpool saying that he is Jesus, saying that is a whole lot less shocking than what's in other shows. And the thing is, shows like The Boys and Invincible are not losing their popularity at all. I'm not denying that their method of marketing these types of shows is working, because they are getting their numbers. But it really is a sad place to be in as a society if gore, language, and sex are what bring people in. The R rating now is what people are looking for a lot of times. And because of that, the studios are putting out more R-rated content because it's selling more. In my opinion, I think that studios should only be making R-rated content if the R rating itself is completely unavoidable in making the movie or show, because it would take away from the story. For example, The Penguin needed to be TVMA because the story could not be told without the rating. It also shouldn't be targeted using the 4-quadrant hit method. But the reason for the R rating is not because of the shock factor. The Boys and Invincible don't have to be TVMA. The content that makes it R-rated doesn't add anything to the story, and you also lose your child audience by doing that. So anyways, as a society, I really hope we get to a place where the R rating isn't what draws you in, but I don't see that happening for a very long time because studios are making money by adding this kind of content to their shows. And yeah, The Boys is not a show that I'm necessarily interested in watching, but it has affected a lot of the superhero genre, which is why I felt like I had to talk about it today. Anyways, let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments. And are you watching The Boys? I'm not. But if you are, do you think that this is what superhero content should look like in the future? I'm also thinking about doing a video on the Odyssey, so let me know if you're interested in that as well. Okay, bye.